Hi friends, my name is Emily and this is The Self-Help Chef. I believe that food is the ultimate connection to all things mental, physical, and spiritual. This series is all about how to navigate important self-help topics while making delicious plant-based food. Food is the source of community, important discussion, family, and so much more. I encourage everyone to cook along with me and my guests while we talk candidly and openly about everything health and wellness. Hey friends, my name's Emily, and today on The Self-Help Chef, we are talking about intuitive eating and my favorite thing in the world, bread. So we are going to be making a focaccia bread today, and to help me is the amazing and beautiful Adee. Adee is a certified eating disorder registered dietitian and does nutrition therapy in both a partial hospitalization program and outpatient practice. Her passion lies in helping people improve the way people relate to food, movement, and their bodies in order to nourish their whole person physically, mentally, socially, and emotionally, which is so amazing. Thank you so much, Adee, for being here to cook with me, make some bread today.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to make bread.
Yes, and you've made bread before, like.
Oh yeah. Yes, but not like you have, I'm sure.
Well, we're gonna figure it out together. And this is like super intro to bread, and it's gonna be really fun to make and just talk about our passions together. So I'm so excited to get started.
Me too. Let's
awesome.
do it.
Okay, so beforehand, we have made together a sponge. So just to show people who are watching at home, it is just kind of the starting point of all bread. We talked about this before. We both love making challah. So challah is another, bread that needs a sponge starter. So what is in here is about a tablespoon of active dry yeast, honey, a little bit of flour just to get it started, and some salt. So this is our sponge. And now all we're gonna do is mix things together, knead, and then we're totally going with that trend of the garden focaccia where we're gonna decorate it, and we can kind of have our creative outlets on that and each make our own bread.
I love it.
Awesome. So over here we have some hot water, and while I'm adding this in, we can kind of do this together and make it totally a partner team. So we will add this in, and then we will let it mix on the stove. So you are a registered dietitian, but you focus on eating disorders, which I think could be kind of hard to navigate.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, not the streamlined, thing that we learn about in dietetics, and what a lot of people kind of a lot of things are turned on their heads. So when it comes to eating disorders.
Yeah, but I think it's so cool that a dietitian is so much more than what people think it is, a lot of people think about it as either losing weight or something that is, eat less calories, but your practice is so much more. And I think your practice ties a lot to other parts of life, like you said in your bio, like mentally, spiritually, and physically. So can you talk a little bit about what got you started with nutrition and food, and just kind of like the type of nutrition that you like to practice and the type of nutrition that you like to teach to your clients?
Yeah, definitely. So I actually grew up like cooking in the kitchen. My mom, we've always, been really hands-on, and she's let us, do little help her with the different parts of it. Obviously no sharp knives as little kids, but other stuff. And so I always just grew up around food and loving food and all kinds of different foods. So we would make everything from breads to salads to quiches to really everything, and obviously desserts and all the good stuff. And it took me, I think, until middle school to realize that not everyone had that in their house growing up, being involved in the kitchen and hands-on with food. And really that's when I started noticing how different I feel when I eat in different ways, and that other people around me really didn't have that experience of experimenting with food.
Yeah.
And so I kind of committed as a really young, I think I was in 7th grade, to saying hey, I want to help people with their nutrition and
that's
to
amazing.
Change the way that they feel in their body.
Wow.
So that's how it started. And then the path totally was not the one that I imagined from 7th grade. My original dream was to actually be the Cardinals dietitian.
Cardinals. Nice.
So I started my career as a sports dietitian, but at that point I really started noticing that the recommendations that I was making, or the struggles that my athletes had, or just people in my life, not even professionally, it was way beyond just good food or bad food or exercising enough and all of that. And really luckily, I ended up at an intuitive eating workshop.
Amazing.
At my yoga studio in Auburn, Alabama.
Oh, wow.
And
they were woke.
Yeah, and it was an eating disorder dietitian, and it totally flipped my world upside down, both personally and professionally. I mean, it was like nothing that we learned in our clinical training, but so much stuff that made sense of like, why is it that people know these things and still can't do it? And it's way more than just like, do I know what to put in my mouth, right?
Yeah.
The food is so much more than the nutrients in the food.
Exactly.
It's connection to other people. It's our culture. It's, you know, it's sadness, it's happiness, it's all of the things.
Yeah.
And so from that point forward, it was point of no return. I was like, I have to help improve relationship with food. That's what I'm going to do.
And I've never had you tell me your story before, so it's really inspiring to see how your journey came to like being an eating disorder dietitian, focusing on recovery and helping other people in that field. And I think everybody's story is so different, but it is, you know, like it's so cool how you found that and how you became so passionate on it.
Yeah, and so then having that background in sports and then also doing that eating disorder, I really like that intersection between the two of movement and how it fuels our body, but how also we need to fuel our body to fuel movement.
Yeah.
That's really like that passion point, that intersection. I love it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so speaking of fueling our bodies, we're going to add more things to our bread. So we have... First, we're going to add our baked potato. So this is kind of my secret ingredient. A mashed potato, pro tip, helps your bread get really fluffy and rise and get really thick.
Cool.
And so in my culinary school, we would add baked potato to like soups to make it thicker. We'd add it to our focaccia to make it light and fluffy. So this is like my little signature thing that we're going to put in. We're going to attach our little bread hook. You can totally come join me over here and we can do this together. So... Gonna add in our potato. So this is just one boiled potato and I mashed it with a fork. I just made sure that I didn't mash it too much. And then if you want, you can add in the olive oil in here. Yeah, and after that I'm gonna close the mixer and we're gonna start mixing it together. And I'm using a bread hook. You can totally do this with your hands. You can do this with a spatula.
I don't think I have a KitchenAid at home, so my hands would be my...
This is a pretty long time to get this invested, so I bring it everywhere that I can go. But yeah, so right now we're just kind of getting things going. I already put the hot water in, and then we have our semolina flour, which is just really good for bread and for pizzas, if you've ever heard about semolina. And then we have our regular high gluten flour, so that's what's going to make it good to knead when we get to knead together. So is that your favorite part of bread? Because that's my favorite part of bread.
Kneading, yeah.
The
absolutely.
kneading.
It's like Play-Doh for adults.
It is like Play-Doh. It's actually very therapeutic. I don't know if you've ever done that with clients. I know you do like virtual cooking classes, and I don't know if you've ever done bread with them, but
I haven't, not yet, but it sounds like a great exposure for them.
So you teach intuitive eating, right?
So combination of it, higher levels of care, there's less of the we teach principles of intuitive eating, but at that point, people's hunger, fullness cues aren't, where they need to be to intuitively eat, but we talk about getting in touch with your body and what it means to reject the diet mentality and things like that. But as they kind of step down and in my outpatient practice, that's where we really work on like, what is my body telling me? How do I respond to those signals?
So cool. So for everybody who doesn't know, because I know there's a big population that doesn't, and I want everybody to know, what is intuitive eating?
Yeah, intuitive eating, I'd say, it's so hard to like distill it into a couple words,
right?
But I'd say it's a self-compassionate way to feed your body and to really tune into your body's signals to figure out what it is that it's asking for. So it's kind of tuning out all that noise around us of eat this and not that, and this is good and this is bad. So much noise.
So much noise.
And so confusing. Like one day, carbs are horrible, and the next day, fat's the devil, and then it's, actually you should eat eggs, but no, you shouldn't eat eggs, or only do cardio, but actually just strength training. Like what actually is, and so.
And if you're tuned into just that world, it can be just so stressful, and you can put so much pressure on yourself. Feel like it's your fault that you're not doing things right, but in reality, it's just the diet culture, and it's just like that noise, right?
Right, totally. And so the intuitive eating is really that turning inward, and that that's kind of a yoga, like turn the gaze inward.
I love it.
Being in tune with your body and knowing to listen for what it asks for. But again, that takes a long time after there has been so much noise to be able to quiet that down enough to listen back to what's going on inside.
So what would be, as we add in our flour, tell me what the first step would be to kind of dip your toes into the intuitive eating world and learn a little bit more about it, because I feel if you are super in the diet culture and if you're super into yo-yo dieting or anything like that, when you hear of intuitive eating, I feel like people could really doubt it and think that it's, you know, a hippy-dippy thing that, you know, it's not going to work.
There's no rules. You can eat whatever you want.
It's not that, though, right?
It's not that at all, because that would be ignoring, you know, there's so many parts to it and it's so nuanced. And so it's not saying that, like, you know, that you can eat whatever whenever. It's that that no foods are off limits by definition, but that your body really has that wisdom to tell you, like, right now a salad sounds really good, right now a burger actually sounds good, right now focaccia sounds amazing, and I'm so excited for when it's done. So kind of that thing. So number one step and the number one principle in it is rejecting the diet mentality. And that's really hard. Again, it's not
that makes me so passionate, like, yes, reject them.
And really to say that there's no external force or external thing that can tell you what your body needs. There's obviously guidance and, like, how do we listen into those cues? How do you, gentle nutrition is one of the principles, but that's way farther down the line. Because you can't get to that without really being able and full gung-ho to say that, like, no diet can tell me what is right or wrong for me.
Exactly. And we have our sticky focaccia bread. So you know that if you've ever made focaccia before, it is very, very sticky.
I've never made it before. So
we're going to each have our own little bread, and we're just going to knead for a couple minutes. So this is my favorite part. We'll just put this over here. We're going to get a big thing of flour because our hands are going to get sticky. Let's see. Okay, so all I'm going to do is just get a little handful of flour and toss it on our surface. If you are kind of weird about cooking on your surfaces or kneading on your surfaces, which our surface is fine, we can totally get down and dirty with our surface, but you can also do this on a cutting board. So you do not have to do this on your kitchen surface, but I just think it makes for an easier cleanup for me. You just, like, kind of wipe it away.
One less thing.
Yeah, one less thing to worry about. Okay, so we have our sticky focaccia dough, and you can kind of still see some potato chunks in there. I know, yum, right? But
potatoes like my favorite food.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Here, I'll give you a little bit more. So don't worry about that because we're gonna kind of knead it together, and it's going to turn out like you won't have a big potato bite at the end, which is good.
It would be okay if there would be.
Yeah, I would be okay with it too. But yeah, so we're just gonna start kneading our bread. And you're a pro, so you know how to knead.
Yeah. Well, whenever we do the cooking demos and stuff, I'm like, I don't have a mixer. It's all by hand.
Yeah. So. I feel like you kind of you get to be one with your food a little bit more. That does sound very yoga as well. But yeah, you get to be one with your food. You get to really feel what's going on. You get to be mindful of it. So for people who at home who don't know how to knead bread, what we're doing is we're just kind of turning it around with one hand and then squishing it down with the other. And we're going to knead this for about 5 minutes because we have a smaller portion. But if this was all one big dough ball, I would say like 8 minutes until it gets nice and soft and it's all kind of one texture. So yeah, so reject diet mentality is number one.
Yeah.
There's 10 principles.
There are 10 principles.
10 principles.
So I don't necessarily remember them in order because sometimes, it's kind of depending where the person is when we're chatting. We kind of jump around and see what they need.
Yeah.
But honoring your hunger is another one of the principles, right? And I think that's it feels so simple, right? Like, duh, when you're hungry you should eat, but also not so duh because in our culture, in our diet culture, it's very much something we avoid, right?
Yes.
How do I distract myself when I'm hungry? Mm-hmm. But when you think about it, when you've got to pee, you're not like, oh, how can I unless you're in the middle of a meeting or something, you're not like, oh, how can I hold this for as long as possible? Because, I just peed an hour ago. There's no possible way for me to have to pee right now. And that's, sounds so silly.
When you compare it, though, it just makes so much sense.
Right. And so hunger is a biological signal, right? It's a survival mechanism. It's our body telling us, hey, you need something. Mm-hmm. And when we continue to ignore it, that's where, our hunger cues it's really hard to listen to them, because they get quieter. Because if you're not going to honor those cues, then you're not going to be able to hear your hunger or your fullness. Yeah. That makes it really hard to then eat for what you eat.
Oh my gosh. That comparison just kind of, a light bulb went off. I've never compared it to that sort of thing. It is a biological need that we all have. And when you have that, the fasting that is promoted and all these diet things that make you not one with yourself is when you start acting in these ways that are not honoring your body. So honor your hunger, I think, is a really important one.
Yeah. And then there is make peace with food. And so that's where you're really giving yourself permission to eat food. So what we see, you know, when people are like, oh, like, I can't ever have a cookie, because if I have a cookie, I have, like, the whole box of cookies, right? And that's that part of that deprivation of the, you know, the body and the brain, like, thinking about one of my favorite analogies. I'm a big analogy person.
I love analogies. Hit me with it.
But if you take a toddler into a room full of toys, right, and you're like, you can play with anything in this room except for that, like, broken red truck in the corner, what's that toddler going to play with?
Play with the broken red truck.
Right, where had you not, like, brought any attention to it, they would have never even probably seen it and would have been on the bike somewhere, or, like, you know, playing with the whatever
It's like
else.
the white polar bear thing, right? Like, don't think about the white polar bear. Have you heard of that?
I usually use, like, if I told you could think of any word except for octopus, what word do you think of? And it's like, wow, why would I think of octopus? But now I'm trying to not think of octopus, so all I'm thinking about is octopus.
Exactly.
So when we, like, put foods on a pedestal and say, I can't eat this food, all we do is end up thinking about that food. And that makes it, you know, makes our brain, like, super hyper-focused on it.
Yeah.
So that making peace with food is giving yourself permission to eat food, and that there's not a food that is off limits. And then again, the kind of criticism that we get from that, I think we need a little bit more flour on here.
Oh yeah, of course.
A little bit. The criticism we get for that is like, but then I'll just, you know,
Eat whatever I want.
Cookies all the time, and it's like, well, for a while, yeah, until you realize that you have full permission to eat food, you're probably going to be eating a whole heck of a lot of cookies.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, you know, it's going to get
tired
to a
of
place
the
like,
cookie.
I know that I can have this cookie. I could have it again in 10 minutes. I could have it again tomorrow or next month.
Yeah.
Or never again. But, like, none of those things feel super concerning because I know that I have that permission.
Yeah. I think I did that with Oreos when I was first in recovery. I was like, oh my God, I want Oreos so bad. And so I remember I was just getting into eat whatever I want. And so I bought the whole thing. And I remember I ate a lot of them.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's how you have to start. You know, you like have to get over everything that you've been repressing and everything that you've been taught. And then once I had like a lot of Oreos, I was like, they're not as good as I thought. You know, like
even if they are, it's like it feels a lot better. Like you taste the first like 1, 2, 3, but then by the time you're like at number 8, you're like, I don't taste anything anymore.
Exactly. So it helped me, you know, it helped me get to that make peace with food is, you know, being able to eat whatever I want and not judge myself for it. And I just think it's something that we should be learning, you know?
And it takes time because, right, like even when you start saying, okay, I have permission, but like only for right now, like that's very conditional permission. It really has to be this unconditional, I know that I'll be able to eat this food again whenever I want.
Yeah.
To get to the point where it's not having power over you.
Yeah. I had just bought the intuitive eating book. I've been so passionate about it, but I've never actually read about it.
Yeah.
And so I'm learning all of these things. Like I remember going back a little bit, you're training to be an intuitive eating counselor.
Yeah. So, and I guess that we should also give credit. So the intuitive eating concept, the book is written by Elise Raish and Evelyn Tribole, which are 2 registered dietitians.
Yes.
Who are also certified eating disorder dietitians.
So cool.
And so really it is this framework, and I want to also say it's science-backed. So I think a lot of people are like, oh, this is frou-frou. It's not, you know, research-based, but it is evidence-based. There are over, I think, 120 research articles to date, you know, showing that the amount of like improved body image and mental health outcomes and health outcomes on their own, you know, with using this approach.
Yeah.
And that it's sustainable, which is kind of key.
That's so key. And you're not just like having one diet for a little bit and then
it's not a quick fix.
Changing. It's not a quick fix. It's like, I think it's getting back to basics.
Right.
Yeah.
It totally is, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not, you know, that's the reason I think it's not so well known, or that it's, you know, so novel but it's so simple, is that it's not a money maker, right? Like me telling you that, hey, your body actually has the wisdom that you need to know how to eat.
You don't need to buy this product
or this whatever, like regimen or these, you know, bars or whatever. You've got it in there, and it might take time to like tune in and to do the practices and figure it out, but but it's in you.
That's so cool. Okay, so I think our dough looks pretty smooth. How does yours look?
I think it's all right.
Made into a little bowl.
Probably not as pretty as yours, but
no, it's beautiful. I think we're at the look that we want. So now what we're gonna do is more waiting.
Yay.
Bread is all about waiting and patience. So what we're gonna
wait.
Exactly. Hurry up and wait. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get a bowl. We're gonna line it with olive oil, and then put our little dough baby into the bowl. Cover it for about 40 minutes to an hour, and it should double in size, which is also my favorite part about bread. and then we'll get to decorating, then we'll get to baking.
Beautiful.
Awesome. All right, guys, so our dough is ready. We've let it rise for, it feels like forever, but it's only been about an hour, and then we stretched it out and let it rise for about 15 more minutes. So now is the fun part. We get to decorate it, and I'm going to give us each our own creative freedom. So it's gonna be garden focaccia, so whatever inspires you. I'm gonna give you artist's choice. So I have some curly parsley here, some asparagus, some halved cherry tomatoes, some carrot ribbons, which is my favorite thing for garden focaccia, and then we have some onions and some radishes. So decorate it how you choose. This is kind of the fun part. Before we do that though, we're gonna do the infamous dimple of the focaccia. I don't know if you've ever seen that. People will go and dimple their bread before just to make sure that there's air pockets in it and that it rises correctly. So it's very, very simple. We're just gonna run our fingers in our dough, dimple it all the way across. Yep. And it's actually really fun. I just love this part. I watch so many ASMR videos of like people doing this to their focaccia bread. So yeah.
There we go.
Perfect. Okay,
Awesome.
so let's get decorating. Okay, so I'm gonna go for this first. So in your bio, it says that you are a pro-food, anti-diet dietitian,
Yes.
which I love. I think that's so creative. Can you talk a little bit about like how you decided to like label yourself as that as a dietitian and how you found that, and just tell me about pro-diet, anti-dietitian, and pro-food, anti-diet.
So many words in one.
Yeah, so many words.
Yeah, so so kind of going back to the beginning where we started talking about like the rep that dietitians usually get, I feel like it's oftentimes like the food police, you're gonna tell me what not to eat, and all the, you know, once I see you, like I'll never be able to eat my favorite food again.
Yep.
And so I feel like and I actually got this from one of my colleagues that I was in a consultation group with.
Oh, cool.
Leslie Schilling. She's an awesome eating disorder dietitian. But kind of talking about like that we love food and all the awesome things that food does for our body. And so really taking that pro food and like diet being kind of one of those 4-letter words now, right?
Yeah.
And really, again, diet culture co-opted that word because if you look it up in the dictionary, originally diet is just what we eat, right?
Exactly.
Like what you eat and drink habitually. But then if you look further down now, it's like how we alter the way that we eat to achieve a certain body shape or size,
It's been turned
you know,
into
that
something
kind of
so crazy.
thing. So I'm taking a totally different route of my creativity.
I like
than
what
you,
you're
but,
doing. It's super creative.
So I like bringing that like positive spin to like food does all these awesome things for our
Yeah.
bodies, for our minds, for our spirits. So taking it that route.
Well, we need a lot more of your kind of dietitian in the world, I feel like. And I just remembered when I followed you on Instagram and it said that, I was like, I love that. That's such a cool way to like promote yourself and, you know, have that career as a pro-food, anti-diet dietitian.
Yeah, I think, you know, the word nutritionist is much more soft in the sense of like, feels more positive to me, but because the word nutritionist actually doesn't have any like backing as far as any person can call themselves a nutritionist.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have any training of any sorts.
It's true.
So obviously the dietitian piece is important to me,
Yeah.
but people hear dietitian, they hear diet, they hear you're gonna like change the way that I eat. And
Yeah.
I mean, the goal is not for me to tell people how they should eat. The goal is to like see how they can eat in a way that's supportive to the lives they want to live.
Totally. Have you gotten any weird feedback from other dietitians that are kind of immersed in diet culture when they talk to you, or is that how does that go with you know, I don't want to say regular dietitians, but dietitians who follow
other dietitians, the more like
that,
yeah,
you know, plan.
No, I mean I haven't personally, but I also am not one to like kind of engage. I feel like, I think I was telling you earlier, you know, like I don't really want to hear about other people's like keto diet or intermittent fasting, and so I don't really like impose my beliefs on other people without them kind of asking about it.
I love that.
Because you know, it's not mine to impose. I think it's one of those things that you come to it when you're ready for it, or maybe like we can plant a seed and then you come back to it when you're ready for it.
Yeah, just have that education ready on hand if somebody is interested in it.
But it's not, you know, it's not my place to tell people how to live their lives. So.
Yeah, it's so true. That's very, very awesome. I think that that way to describe your practice is super cool, and I think that it grabs people's attention. They're like, oh, let me learn more about that. Let me learn more about.
What do you mean you're not going to tell me? But then so many people are like, but just tell me what to eat, right?
Yeah.
It actually makes me think of when you were like, free range to do this, and I'm like, but there's no instructions. Like what's the right way to do it? And I feel like that's how we approach food, right?
That looks like, what is a abstract, like Van Gogh, very Van Gogh view. I went the basic garden route.
But it's so pretty.
I made a little garden patch.
But it totally made me think of like how, in our culture we're like taught that like there's a right way to eat, a wrong way to eat. Not that anybody knows what the right or wrong way to do it is, but that there isn't, and you can, like, every person has their own, so like our focaccias look so different, but neither of them is right or wrong.
Exactly. Like, for example, I'm plant-based, right? I eat a vegetarian diet.
Sure.
But I'm not trying to have other people eat that way,
Right.
Because diet is so individualistic to every different human that I feel like if we told them to eat a certain way, it would just be like telling them how to practice religion or telling them how to like date and marry or have kids, It's your own choice in your life, and whatever's going to make you feel the most yourself and the most at peace with yourself is what you should do. And I think intuitive eating is a really cool segue into finding yourself in nutrition.
Yeah, because again, like we talked about earlier, but like food isn't just about the food, it's about so many parts of your life. So it's so individual.
Very cool. Very cool. Are you happy with your creation?
I think I'm good with it,
Okay.
yeah.
I think it's beautiful. Okay, so we are going to place our beautiful garden focaccias in the oven for 20 minutes on 475, and they are going to be ready to eat. So I'm so excited.
Yay.
Yay. Okay, awesome. Let's drizzle it a little bit with olive oil and some. Good. All right, guys, so our beautiful portraits are now in front of us, and I love how they're so different.
They're so pretty.
I think they're so pretty. They're so poofy and nice, and like I love the dark caramely brown color that we got on these breads. So I'm so excited to dig in, and I know you're going to take us through one of the principles of, you said discover the satisfaction factor, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to discover our satisfaction factor, and I'm excited for you to take us through that. So I will cut us off a little piece. Do you care if you want your corner piece or if you want your...
No, whatever.
Okay.
Up to you. Yeah, but I mean, part of, I think, the experience of eating that so many people overlook is what tastes good, right? Like what is satisfying. And so thinking about, in this moment, do I want something like cold and crunchy or like warm and doughy or like creamy, all of those things. And so being able to also tune into like what are the flavors in my mouth and what's the temperature and like what does it feel like? That's so much more beyond, what will we ever talk about when it comes to food?
Yeah, and I think it's just it just makes sense. Like when you really think about it, you're like, oh yeah, like what am I really craving right now? I am craving bread.
Oh my gosh, it smells so good.
It looks really good on the inside too. Yours is very, very like fluffy.
It is like, looks like professional restaurant.
Yes, you're a professional. Cheers.
Wow.
And it's still steaming, can you see?
So good. Oh my gosh, it is. So
I
it's
love
got that
bread.
like spongy, like doughy taste, and obviously savory. I think also thinking about, like even the colors of the vegetables, like how it brings like a different visual to it.
Definitely.
And really being like present with the food, right?
Yeah, and just like being able to decorate it and really get involved with making our food, I think is really fun, and I think it really makes it even more satisfying when we're eating it, because we're like, yeah, we made this and it's really pretty and now we get to eat it.
It's delicious.
Yeah. We could have framed these. They're beautiful works of
They
art.
are. It's so true.
Yeah.
But I think better for us to eat them, right? Better use of them.
So much better for us to eat them, and I guarantee you that I'm going to eat all of this bread. So.
Oh, I for sure will. Me too.
I'm very excited. Well, thank you so much, Adee, for joining me and making this garden focaccia with me, and
Thank you.
talking about all things intuitive eating, which I'm so passionate about. So it's really cool to hear from an expert to talk about, how to really approach intuitive eating if you are not familiar with it, or if you are, and just new things that you can think about. So I just want to thank you again.
It's always a learning experience. We're all always growing and learning and tuning into our body in different ways. So it's definitely a process. But I so appreciate you letting me come on. This has been so much fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Remember, you are worthy, you are important,
And thank you for watching us cook some bread. I hope you go out and cook some bread yourself.
You definitely should try this one.
Yes, definitely try it. And go research about intuitive eating because it is the bomb. So love you guys. See you next time. Yay!
Yay!
Thank you so
Oh my gosh,
much.
this was amazing.
And